Talk about everything, play music in between. Tune in and enjoy Chad's underground scene. Talking music, you know what I mean. Tune in and enjoy Chad's underground scene.
Welcome to Chad's Underground Scene with my special guest today, Geza X. How you doing, buddy? We are deep in the underground here in LA, Los Angeles, California. How are things going with you?
Good, awesome. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so I'm really excited because you were one of my big influences early on, late 70s, early 80s. I wore your record out. I played that thing probably 1,000 times, right? And I still have it to this day. I have that record and I put it on my record player and appreciate it.
That's gratifying to hear because a lot of people didn't know about it because it was just too weird too weird to exist.
And to me, that was true punk.
Yeah.
You were doing exactly what you wanted to do and you didn't care. You just did it.
That's the punk attitude of just like, being completely free with your creativity. And, I was influenced by a lot of heavy hitters like Frank Zappa, Captain Beefheart, Blue Cheer, and I tried to roll all of that stuff together, with a little 60s psychedelia because I was a bit older than some of the other punks, and turn that into a music style that I, called X music. And the idea was that it was like, came from two different places but kind of crossed in the middle. And that is Dada. To me, Dada is the idea of taking something, where you just kind of reverse all of its iconography. Good is bad, bad is good. A toilet belongs in a museum, etc. And so I was trying to make musical Dada, which, of course, my favorite influence on that side of things was Captain Beefheart, because I consider his music to be true musical cubism, and I don't think anyone else has ever really done it before or since the way that he did it.
And then Blue Cheer, that's another record I wore out, right?
Yeah. Well, Vincebus Eruptum in particular, although the second album was pretty good, but it was like the second album, I think they mixed it on acid or something, because you have to listen through headphones to really get that second album. To get the feel of it, because otherwise it sounds messy, but in headphones it sounds real good. But Vincebus Eruptum, I think, began heavy metal. I think that was the first heavy metal album, and when I first heard it, it just blew my mind because it was like so raw and so kind of like, it was like, blues anarchy or something, but yet it drew from a lot of the blues influences of the 60s, but it just took it in a whole different place. I think that bands like Led Zeppelin, a lot of other bands got their start because really Blue Cheer first kind of just pushed that baby into the water.
So I have a great story about Blue Cheer. I was listening to the album and I had invited a friend over, right? And he was a little older than me. And I'm listening to the album and he comes over. So I go and I answer the door and we go into my room and I got Blue Cheer playing and he looks at me and he goes, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "What is wrong with you?" And he walks over to the record player and he turns the volume up by 3 times, right?
Oh.
So it's just blaring in the room. He goes, "That's how you listen to Blue Cheer."
Oh, how funny. That's a good story. What's wrong with you? And you were like going like, well,
yeah, I'm
he
like,
doesn't
like
the
my
record,
music.
Yeah.
He's like, "That's how you listen to Blue
That's
Cheer. It
true.
has to be loud."
Well, there's a legendary story that they used to do concerts like on the end of the Santa Monica Pier, and the audience would have to stand on the other end because their amps were so loud.
They're so loud. And then he told me all about it. He was saying, Blue Cheer is that's known as the loudest band on the earth, right? I'm like, and you know what? It sounded pretty good loud.
Yeah. We used to listen to it and pump it really hard.
So what gets you started in playing music on your own and writing songs?
Well, I started playing guitar at like about age 12, 13.
Nice.
I was like a really unpopular kid, and there were some very popular kids at my Catholic school, and they had a little band that played at the cafeteria, and I was like, wow, they've got a band? How does that work? Because, I was always hearing about like the Beach Boys and stuff from them, and so, one day they was with the same kids that bullied the fuck out of me, beat me up every day. But one day I walked up to one of them and said, if I learn how to play guitar, can I be in your band? And he goes, yeah, sure, Geza, yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure. So I went and learned how to play guitar. But, I'm a little, I don't know what to call it. I've got an unusual nervous system. And I'm like, not spastic, but I've got like problems. Like I can't play really fast. And I can't memorize scales and stuff. So when I started to really pick up the guitar, I just said, I'm either going to like invent my own thing or just I'm not going to be able to do this.
Right, yeah.
So what happened was I started experimenting. And I started, taking like, the blues rock that was like popular in those days and merging it, like I talked about with X music, merging it with a lot of the dissonant stuff that I liked in psychedelic music. I used to love these long psychedelic jams. Now I can't listen to it to save my life. They're
Right.
exhausting. But for some reason, there was a time when you were first getting stoned that was the shit,
you were into it, right?
Yeah.
You're in that room by yourself going, oh,
yeah.
got
And
this.
so what I started to do was I learned songs that I liked. I was always a big fan of a wide range of music. I grew up on classical, and then I started listening to things like Elvis and stuff in the 50s, doo-wop. And then I started to listen to psychedelic music, But I always loved pop music too, like Petula Clark and the Beatles and Creedence Clearwater. Creedence had a terrible reputation among the hippies, which is ridiculous considering how great their songs were.
Yeah.
So I always loved good sounding songs, and what I later discovered were well-produced records. And so, I would listen to these records and pore over the album covers at, Tower and stuff like that and try to glean some kind of truths about what is this sound that they have. Like I remember very clearly when Beatles' Rubber Soul came out, and it sounded just a little different from the other earlier Beatles stuff. And I was going, what's that sound? Well, now I understand that the sound is a synergistic combination of production elements. And that, when the things are put together and laid together in a certain way, you may not even be able to, as a kid, I wasn't able to really discern the individual instruments.
Right,
but
yeah.
I got the sound.
But you get the sound and you feel
like
in
it
the
was
feel.
all
You could
one
feel
thing.
it. Yeah, you could feel
now
it.
I, listen to records. It's producing records has kind of ruined it for me.
Oh, no, because you know every part that's on there.
Yeah, I can't hear it as just a thing, as a holistic thing. I hear it more like as a combination of instruments. So, when I get that magic back, sometimes, when I'm listening to some experimental music and stuff and I cannot figure out what they're playing or how, then I get the sound again, you know?
That's sweet. So tell us a little bit about that first album you recorded. You Goddamn Kids is your first album, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very lucky because I was living at the Mask, which was Hollywood's first real punk rock club. Yeah. It was literally in a basement underneath the Pussycat Theater, which was a porn theater at the time. And all of us punks went in through the back alley. It was like literally an alley club. And you go down into this web, this weird intricate maze of rooms that were Brendan, the owner, was renting them out as rehearsal rooms. And so he needed some help there, and I had a PA and some microphones and a bunch of other stuff. And so, what I did was I, offered to be his sound guy and to rent a room from him. And he had a little office that was directly behind the door that went down into the basement. And so I got to that actually had a small window that I could look out of and see the people coming in and stuff. So, I had a PA and stuff, and I pretty much just brought that in. He'd pay me a little bit of money. So I ended up renting a room from Brendan, the owner of the Mask. And then I, used my PA and my recorder sometimes, and I had a bunch of mics and stands and stuff that all got trashed over the time that the place was
yeah.
running shows. But
Everything
anyways,
gets trashed there.
Yeah, it really did.
That's what it was about, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was all like graffiti on top of graffiti on top of graffiti. If you see any photos of the mask with graffiti that says "The Jerrys," that was like my gang. I was Jerry number 1.
Oh,
and
sweet,
then that showed The Prisoner back in the day from England. You know how they had different numbers. Well, I would appoint people Jerry number 2, Jerry number 3, and et cetera. It's like we ended up with like about 40 or 50 Jerrys that were like the hardcore mask, clique,
Kind of like Devo did with Bob's, right?
Yeah.
Bob 1, Bob.
Yeah. And we had Jerryettes too, so it was pretty fun. But at any rate, that's what got me started. I had a little bit of experience recording at a recording studio literally across the street from the Mask. I slept from sleeping on one floor of a recording studio to sleeping on a floor of the Mask. Slept on a lot of floors, and Brendan and I started a band because he was a drummer and I was a guitar player, and since we were friends with everyone in the scene, we ended up collecting a really, really good band. Don Bonebreak from X played marimbas.
Oh, yes.
Pat Delaney from the Deadbeats played saxophone, and he didn't use a normal saxophone. He had a pickup on it, and I set that through an octave divider and an amplifier. So he basically played what we called rhythm sax, and he would double me on a lot of the rhythm parts. So the Deadbeats and the Mommy Men had that da 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 rhythm stuff.
And then that sax line, it just
and then
cuts right into you. It's awesome.
and then we had Paul Rossler on keyboards. He was playing in the Screamers at the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at various times we had different background singers. Vanilla and Joanne, who were like scenesters from back in the day. Josie Cotton did some stuff with us, and I was helping the Payne Brothers. The Payne Brothers were like two guys that basically let me start again. The Payne Brothers were a legend in the early days. They helped Fear, they helped the Go-Go's, they helped me and a lot of other bands get their start because they had a small recording studio in the foothills in Hollywood, and it was like just an 8-track place. It was small, but it had a good sound, and so I became their engineer. I just always was everyone's house engineer in those days. And I became their engineer, and they, let me have the run of the studio. So, we recorded a lot of bands' demos in there, like a lot of their early stuff with them producing. But I produced the Geza X and the Mommy Men album there on the time that they gave me gratis. And that allowed me to spend quite a bit of time on it and get really, really good sounds.
And that was the way to go, right? Mm-hmm. To get your recordings done, you can't afford it, right? So you go anywhere.
Yeah.
What can I do for you? So you can give me some. Yeah.
Well, that was the
awesome.
early punk scene. So much stuff was like done on trade. A lot of bands used my amps and my pedal boards and my guitars. Pat Smear never had a guitar in those days, and he was always using my guitars. And to his credit, even though the Germs shows were like dangerous, he never broke one of my guitars. He always returned it in good condition. And it's those Germ shows. I mean, that's a whole other story.
We'd go on tours, right, and go, hey, if you lend us your amp and guitar, you could go on tour with us.
That was the punk. That was the punk ethic. It was all DIY and it was all trade.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to break away and we're going to start with a video here. The Paranoids Are Coming, straight off of your album. You got
That's fantastic.
You goddamn kids, you think. Who the hell do you think you are, anyway? I seen you on the TV, always doing the slam around. Well, you ain't gonna get away with that anymore. I'm gonna
I mean, what's going on? Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I want my mommy.
Help! 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 No wait, the computers are trying to inspect me. Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! They want to kill me! They want to kill me! Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! I'm on TV! I'm on TV! They're setting up their powerful machine. I think I better act like I don't notice. Why are they spying on me? What happens when they start taking photos? Huh? Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! They want to kill me! They want to kill me! Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! I'm on TV! I'm on TV! Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! They want to kill me! They want to kill me! Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! I'm on TV! I'm on TV! Could it happen to a nicer guy? I don't like it when they read my mind! Could it happen to a nicer guy? They want to take me to make me die! Could it happen to a nicer guy? I don't like it when they read my mind! Could it happen to a nicer guy? They want to take me to make me die! Hey, good! 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 We're going forward! Bad! 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 We're going back! Good! 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 We're going forward! Bad! 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 We're going back! Good! 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 We're going forward! Bad! 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 We're going back! Good! 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 We're going forward! Bad! 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 We're going back! Good! We're going forward! 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 You goddamn kids. You think you got it made, huh? Oh!
I want my mommy.
Help! Help! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! The foreigners are coming! Help! Help! I'm on TV!
The paranoids are coming. Geza X, the mommy man. Mommy!
No more mistakes!
Okay, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that. I absolutely did. All right, so let's talk a bit about your, you started engineering, right? You went from there, and then as you went, you ended up with your own studio in engineering. So
Right.
tell us a little more about the engineering there and your journey to probably Malibu. Is that the first place where you were really
No.
full-time?
There were several starter
Okay.
studios before that.
Yeah, so tell
what
us a little
happened
bit
was-
about those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gladly. So, at first, I became the Screamers' permanent sound man and roadie during the brief time that amazing band was in existence. And it's unfortunate and still makes me sad that they never recorded an album, because I would have loved to produce them. But, fate kind of had other plans. But I did all of their Whiskey shows and Roxy shows and toured with them. And, they had a Space Echo, which is this Roland box that makes all these groovy echoes. And I would patch that into the board. So when they were playing, I would bring these cycles of echoes and stuff like that into their singing and into their drums. And there would be a certain point in the song in their set when they would just walk off the stage, and I'd be doing these cascading swells of echoes that were built around the last notes they had played. Those shows were like famous.
Oh, yeah.
Really helped that band out, and it helped me out because what happened was I got a reputation, and a lot of other bands started to ask me to do their live sound, and then from that I started spreading the word that I was a producer. I didn't even hardly know what that was in those days, but Darby Crash slapped me on the shoulder one day and said, "You a producer, produce the Germs."
That's it, yeah.
And so that was my first record, was for Slash Magazine, which became Slash Records. The Germs and Geza X, that was like an amazing triangle right there.
Right, and you're in good company there, right?
And then after that, it happened really, really quickly. Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, it just, Red Cross, it went on and on after that. So years later, I would use different studios around town. I got really familiar with a lot of studios, and pretty soon they would let me just do all my own engineering. when I would produce a band, and I would be able to keep the prices down that way by not hiring an outside engineer. So yeah, my skills grew, and many years later, I shacked up with Josie Cotton, from Johnny Are You Queer fame, and she's a hilarious girl. She's still out there doing it.
She's
wonderful
awesome,
stuff. And she's released a number of albums recently that were all the stuff she'd archived over the years that nobody wanted to put out, and they're great albums. Some were produced by me, some were produced by Paul and her. She always had a strong hand in the production because she's such a good songwriter, And so when she and I were together, she had a house right behind the Comedy Store in Hollywood. And we decided to convert the garage into a small studio. And I did all the math and worked out all of the dimensions and all of the ways to do that. And pretty much designed it myself. And that studio turned out to be a good sounding space. That was where we recorded 1,000 Mona Lisas, a dozen other bands, a bunch of Josie Cotton stuff, and notably Bitch by Meredith Brooks.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And that song took off. Capitol signed her, and that song took off and sold millions of units. And so that was my first big, hit. It was number 2 on the Billboard charts for like 6 weeks. And only outdone by I'll Be Missing You by, what is that, Puff Daddy?
Yeah, Puff Daddy.
Stupid. But, you can't compete with the majors. They've got the Mafia and everything else on
they're
their side.
paying
So
everybody
it's amazing
off to make theirs a hit, right?
It's amazing that I was able to get that far.
To pull it off, right? Yeah.
But working with major labels was such a disappointment. I really love the grassroots scene, and I'm just very loyal to the street, So after doing that, I just felt like, that was such a sour experience. There was a lot of politics. It was, I kind of got shafted, to be honest with you, by Capitol. And, I was going to start working on the album, and they just somehow dumped me and got, somebody that the A&R guy knew to record the rest of the album. So I was like, fuck this politics, I don't really want to be one of those people that gets all evil to try and compete. And I just went back to doing what I love doing, which is recording underground bands.
Exactly, underground music, right?
I've been doing it ever since.
And that's where it all starts, right? And then then you get to be the first one to hear it, right? You're like, oh,
you exactly nailed it. That's why I love doing that. And if I can help make it sound better, I'm not necessarily the best producer in the world or engineer, but I have enough to be able to make that happen, and I get to be the first person to hear it before it goes out and sees the world.
And be a big part of it, right?
Yeah, and be involved in it. Plus, joining a band for a month is a big difference from having to actually tour with them.
Right,
and
you
stuff
get all
like
the good
that.
parts.
Yeah, I get to have the fun of being a member of the team.
Right.
I get to also have the fun of trying to help them with my knowledge to bring out some epic sounds from whatever they're doing. And then, I get these close, very intimate relationships with these artists for a while, and then I get to leave.
Right, yeah.
Before it all goes south, So that's the sweet spot as far as I'm concerned.
So what were some of your favorite bands that you recorded and engineered or produced?
Well, obviously I have to say, the Dead Kennedys. Jello Biafra is just such a superstar and such a hilarious and brilliant individual that it was, really, we're still really good friends. It was an honor to be able to try and harness a talent like that, which is almost like riding a wild bull. He is so intense.
He is so intense.
And he's very, very bossy, and he's very, very,
opinionated a little bit.
Very opinionated. But, he liked having me there because I was kind of a combination engineer, cheerleader, friend.
Right, yeah.
And he really, really, he just loves me, and ditto, So, I think that it was that kind of friendship bond where I was able to help him, overcome some of, his difficulty getting out what he wanted to get out, and then being able to go for it. We used to put a really good microphone in front of him, but then we'd put another a stage type of microphone
stage mic,
on a stand next to him, so he could go like this while he was singing, and that usually worked out really well.
Because then that brings him to the live stage, right?
Yeah.
because that's where he really
Yeah,
performed the
yeah.
best, right? Was live
When
on
he's
stage.
frantic is when he's doing the
Yeah.
best. Yeah.
And when things are going wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we played a show with them, and the next thing we knew, we didn't have a problem. But when they get on stage, then there's tear gas coming through the windows, right?
Wow.
And police came in and just shut the whole thing down and hitting people with
Wow.
batons and.
You're kidding.
Oh, yeah, it was
my
crazy.
gosh. Where was that, San
And he was
Francisco?
at his best. No, it was right here. It was
Oh.
at the Longshoremen's Club in.
Wow. That's an interesting
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was crazy, and
Yeah.
they get everybody, and he was at his best. He's on stage while all this is going on, and he's like, well, "Fuck those guys! Don't even listen to them."
Oh, he loves that, you know. He loves controversy. He did a really good thing in San Francisco when he ran for mayor. He had all of these interesting quotes that he would, like, you know, put up in the media and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like saying, you know, all politicians should wear clown suits, you know, and stuff
No,
like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So the Dead Kennedys. I also loved working with Red Cross. Red Cross was amazing.
Oh, I love those
You know,
guys, yeah.
they're just really funny. They have their own, like, little, you know, Leave It to Beaver world
Oh,
that
yeah.
they live in.
Well, Dez was one of my favorite singers that sang for Black Flag.
Yeah, and Dez, I'm so glad that they did end up releasing some of that Damaged album as singles, because I love Dez's singing too.
Yeah.
I think he sings with the Misfits now, is that right?
Yeah,
I
he's
believe,
singing
yeah.
with Misfits,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
he's just always out there. He's doing a show this week or next weekend, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, Dez and I have this joke, you know, he's a really nice cat, you know. We have this joke, you know, there was that band in the 60s, Steppenwolf, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we started talking about Steppenwolf with these, like, you know, Russian accents. And we go, oh, I love Steppenwolf all the time. I love Steppenwolf.
All the time, every day.
And then he would, like, you know, like, come back at me with the same thing, you know. So we've got this inside joke about Steppenwolf.
And it's so funny when you make mistakes like this, right? Because a lot of albums, I think a song says something else than what it actually says. I'll be
Right.
singing the lyrics, and my friend will go, "What are you singing?"
Exactly. That's exactly right. I've misquoted so many song
Oh, yeah.
lyrics over the years. I still don't really get the lyrics. A lot of times when I'm listening to music, I was talking about the sound, you know, earlier. And, you know, one of the things that kind of remained as like the sound for me is that I don't really listen to the lyrics first.
Yeah.
I listen to the beat, the chord changes, the melody of the singing,
Yeah.
and then it takes me a long time to get into the lyrics, you know. A lot of times in rock music, you really can't pull out the lyrics that easily anyways.
Oh
so-
yeah. One of the ones I laughed the most is when I was a kid. It was Elton John put out Benny and the Jets, and my neighbor was telling me that it's "put a penny in the jug" is what he said, and I'm like, what? I don't think that's what he's saying. And then I researched it, and I go, no, it is Benny and the Jets.
Oh my God.
And he still swore, no, it's "put a penny in the jug, man." Oh, awesome. So, tell me a little bit about the Deadbeats, because you did a couple shows with the Deadbeats.
Well, yeah. Recently we
Tell me how that came
we
together.
did a couple of new shows, but back in the day, you know, the Deadbeats were one of the mask house bands, and you know, we did a pretty strong stint, you know, playing in San Francisco and in L.A. We played at the Whiskey. We played at a bunch of places, and the Deadbeats to this day are one of the favorite band, maybe the favorite band that I've ever been in, because it matched my musical style so closely.
Yes, yeah.
When I got kicked out of the bags for wearing bloody tampons on my bag, yeah, we actually wore bags on our heads. It's hard to play.
Yeah.
Nicky Beat, who was Alice Bag's boyfriend at the time, and Nicky Beat is like, I would call him the Johnny Appleseed of punk, because he used to go around
yeah.
to all the different districts, and of LA's huge, you know, and he would go to Orange County, he'd go to the Valley, and he would collect people and bring them to the mask scene, you know. So he also put a lot of musicians together. So he introduced me to Scott Guerin. He said, "You got to be in the Deadbeats. You got to be in the Deadbeats. You're the perfect guitar player for them." And he introduced me to Scott Guerin, and Scott, you know, showed me some of their songs, and I showed him a little bit of guitar, and that turned out to be like magic. I mean, that band, I instantly fit into. And even though they had a lot of prog rock roots, you know, the bass player and the drummer were very prog rock influenced, and they were like virtuosos on their instruments. But, you know, Scott and me, we were kind of more like just crude. And the sax player, you know, Pat Delaney, he could really wail. I mean, I've heard him play like Coltrane style solos, but he was like kind of low energy, and I wouldn't call him lazy exactly, but he was just like, you know, like a true punk, and, you know, didn't want a lot of hassle. And so he liked playing rhythm sax like I was describing. So that was the band. I was able to latch on to the atonality and the unusual things because I just brought X music with me.
Right, yeah.
Into the Deadbeats, you know, and it worked perfect for them. So I ended up co-writing with Scott on a number of songs. I co-wrote Final Ride. There was a number of songs where, you know, I came up with the chord changes, and on almost all of the songs I ended up helping with the arrangements. Like Scott would hum them out and say, this is where I want the lyrics to go, and this is what I want the beats to be, and then I would like arrange the different instruments and kind of like, okay, you play this now, you play this here. That was where I got a lot of my chops for arrangement, actually, and it helped me a lot with my production later on.
Nice. And is that something that just happens once in a while now, or?
Well, you know, it's like, it depends a lot on Scott Garrett. If he wants to, you know, do a Deadbeats show, he will, you know, bring together as much of the old crew as he can. Nowadays, we frequently have David Jones, who's a wonderful bass player. He plays with Alice Bag and a bunch of other bands too. But David Jones is really, really a good bass player. Perfect for the Deadbeats. Yeah. Understands the weirdness and stuff. And then, you know, grudgingly, once in a while, Scott will invite me in because, you know, there's been, I don't know if it's rivalry or ego clashes or what between Scott and I, but, you know, it's like he's a very abrasive person. Abrasive and yet honest, you know what I mean? Like, you know, he's always like a gentleman as far as like things like money and stuff like that are concerned. But, you know, I did try to steal the whole band from him at one point to start the Mommy Men.
Oh, no.
He never quite liked that, you know.
So that always stuck in his craw.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's just like, you know, like a really bitchy cat, you know. And so, he's, you know, it's like some of it is like what you might call sarcastic humor, but he pushes it to the absolute limit to where like you're in actual pain.
Yeah,
He's
where
like
you're
dissing
hurt.
you so badly, you know. And I try to come back at him because him and his brother, that's all they ever did was just like, you know, like just rag on people. I mean, for fun, you know. But I would try to come back, but you know, I was like a.
And that's coming a long way from your childhood, right?
That's what I'm saying. Because I was a kid that like really got bullied a lot, and so for me, there's kind of a point where I just can't take it anymore. But you know, that's the way. That's the Deadbeats in a nutshell. And yeah, we've done some shows, you know, more recently, but it's not very often. They're few and far between.
Right,
he does shows with the alternate Deadbeats, which is called Bent. And they did, you know, like quite a lot of shows with Paul Rossler on keyboards. Yeah. And, you know, it's all one, like, incestuous clique with all of us.
Oh, yeah, and Paul's the best, right? You
Paul's
always want him as your keyboard player.
Oh, yeah.
He's the best
Paul,
best
I
around,
gotta
right?
say, you know, Paul is one of the most hardworking and loyal people in the scene. You know, he was, like, always really quick to, you know, help me out with my bands. He always showed up on time. He always worked really hard. He was a tremendous player. He was really supportive, and I got to say that, you know, I could not have done a lot of it without him. It's like, you know, he's really something else.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to break away to a Deadbeats song, but it's actually your song. This is you with the Deadbeats playing "I Hate Punks."
Oh, right on. Cool.
One of my favorite songs.
Thanks.
No use standing in line anymore. You're not gonna get what you came here for. If you weren't so paranoid, you'd reconsider. You're boring and destructive and you're making me bitter. I hate punks. Punks are bad. I hate punks. You're making me so mad. leather, swastikas and chains. You're such a fucking copycat. Last time it was glitter. You follow me around, but I am not your babysitter. I hate punks. I'm not in the mood. I hate punks. I hate your attitude. It's a catchphrase I hear it every day. Catchphrase, the things that you say. Catchphrase, the catch in your mouth. Catchphrase, you move like a cow. Oink, oink. You shoot a little dope and then pretend that you're addicted. You're writing on the wall so you can get your friends evicted. You're sexually retarded, but you act so tough. You're a klepto and a moron. I've had just about enough. I hate punks. You're so trendy. I hate punks. I hope you OD. Catchphrase, I hear it every day. Catchphrase, the things that you say. Catch move, you fashion you bow. Catch move, you move like a cow. People never do things once, they always do it two. You think that once you thought something, you'd think of something new. Anxious little memory bank encoder, decoder, trapped in tradition like a piston in a motor. I hate punks. You're so bad. I hate punks. You're making me so mad. I hate punks. I hate your attitude. I hate punks. I'm not in the mood. Hey. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
Hope you enjoyed that. And it's not true, though. Punks aren't bad.
Punks are bad. I hate punks. I always hated punks. I was a hippie. I just fell into the punk scene accidentally because it turns out that my ideas of music, which were like way too crude for the hippie world, and my sardonic sense of humor, you know, I'm sort of like...
Yeah, sends you right into the punk genre.
You know, you could put me in the same category as Scott Guerin also, but like, you know, as like, you know, Keith Morris, Frank Zappa, you know, the
yeah,
really...
I was gonna say, I think it hit Zappa more, right? That's
the
more
really
of your
sarcastic
lane.
fuckers, you know. So, you know, when the punk scene happened, I got what it was about. It was just, you know, what I'd always like longed for. Greg Shaw used to write these editorials in, you know, his magazine Bump, you know, Who Put the Bump, and he would write these editorials saying, you know, someone's got to like bring back this garage rock of the late 60s, Standells, Seeds, bands like that,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
And, you know, I was like, yeah, exactly. You know, like 3 chords, loud, too loud, in a garage, you know, unprofessional. Because, you know, we were like struggling with the whole progressive rock, you know, thing, which is really just another... you know, word for, you know, virtuosity and noodling jazz things that were sort of and like disguised as rock, you know.
And if your guitar player does that when you're playing a gig, you want to punch him, right?
Yeah.
Quit noodling.
Yeah. Well, anytime I played a solo on stage, Scott Guerin would just push me off the stage, you know, when I get into my rock
But in
coat.
prog rock, they do it right on stage in front of you.
Yeah, it's horrible. And of course there was the dreaded disco. So there was prog rock and disco.
Right.
So,
yeah.
you know, it's like when I heard like, you know, like God Save the Queen.
Right, yeah.
Or the Ramones.
Yeah, the door swung wide open.
I literally just went, manna from heaven, you know, finally throwing a starving dog a bone.
Oh, yeah.
This is what I want.
And that door just swung wide open for punk rock. Here
the
we go.
only thing I wanted to do to punk rock was just add X chords, which I did.
Yeah, you did.
You know, but it took a while for them to catch on. A lot of people used to say, well, the Deadbeats, do they just make it all up as they go? No, those songs were so tightly arranged.
Oh, no,
you know?
yeah.
And you know, so I tried to simplify it, dumb it down into like more of a Beatles type of thing with the Mommy Men.
Same thing with Screamers, too, right? It was, that stuff was tight.
Right.
They were one of the tightest bands around, right? It's crazy. You're just like, wow.
Yeah,
It
so
looks loose, but it's not. It's tight. And then Paul Rosser, what a signature keyboard sound he has, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many people that are at that level of playing keyboards and that level
well,
of
he
changing
would play through a
sounds.
big muff, which was what usually guitar players
Yeah.
used,
Mhm.
and then I took the Rhodes that he played on, and I was their engineer, so I went inside there and I cut the wires for the low notes.
Oh, okay.
And then I left everything the same for the high notes, and I put a second jack on the front of it, so those low notes would now come out through a bass amp.
Through another amp. Okay, yeah.
And so that way he could play bass with one hand and play the rest of it through the fuzz with the other hand. That turned out really good for them.
Yeah. So the bass player in Cheap Trick does something similar. He plays a 12-string bass.
Wow.
Right? And then he's got 2 jacks, same thing. One jack goes out to the bass amp,
Oh.
and that's the low strings.
Oh.
Then the high strings go into a high watt guitar amp.
How smart.
So it's like he's the whole band. There's a drummer in him, and if the guitar player didn't play, you wouldn't notice.
Oh my God, I didn't know
And then
that.
the guitar player comes in and plays all those cool little riffs and all that other stuff.
Wow, that's an amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me that. This is good engineering lore.
So that's their sound. Yeah, that's why they have such a unique sound. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really good.
Yeah, no, it's amazing what people come up with, right? Especially when you're at small numbers, right? It's a 3-piece band.
Yeah, yeah.
They have a singer that's 4-person, but it's a 3-piece band, right?
Yeah,
And
you've got to do stuff to overcome
make
the
it full.
emptiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the Screamers, I used to call them the Tinker Toy Screamers. I loved that look where it was like all their little synthesizers on milk crates, the wire milk crates.
Yeah.
I loved the look, the sparseness, the emptiness of all of that.
And then the sound was so
But
full.
the sound was so big. But that was because there was a lot of stuff going on. The echo, me mixing, Paul with the left hand and everything.
Right, yeah.
And also KK's tom-toms. We took off the bottom heads. And I would mic those tom-toms from the bottom. And before every show, we would actually tune his tom-toms to 2 specific notes.
Oh, right, to the note.
Like
right, yeah.
George of the Jungle. Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 you know?
Yeah, I've done that. I've had a few drummers that they would tune it to the song, right?
And if you did that, then we had more extra bass, and everything was about like trying to get more bass.
Oh, right, yeah, everything's
Because the
about
first time I
bass.
heard the Screamers, I think it was at Larchmont Hall or something, they sounded so shrill. They were a beautiful band. I was just like, what the fuck? But it sounded like...
Oh, yeah.
I said, I'd like to work with these guys, but we got to do something.
So you were also involved with Vortex. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The Vortex has now been leased out to a cat that runs a cannabis collective, and he is doing shows out of there. But I spent close to 10 years as their, of course, resident gnome, sound man, sleeping on the floor, that kind of thing, and setting up all of their shows. And what they were was that they weren't a nonprofit, but they were like heavily nonprofit friendly. And their idea was to create a space that was sort of like the co-ops of the 60s, where, people would go and they would, collect money to donate to various causes.
And now there's a lot of things they call collectives, right?
And set up protest marches and all kinds of things like that. But it didn't quite turn out in LA. In LA, it's kind of hard to get something like that going. LA is so spread out, and it's not the 60s. People are a lot more self-centered, and So what we ended up doing was we ended up doing a lot of art shows. We ended up doing a lot of indie. The siren. So the Vortex became a place where it was more like a kind of an indie co-op, I guess you could say. There was a lot of art shows. There was a lot of bands playing. We did a trap festival, things like that. Where the community would want to do shows, but they couldn't afford a huge venue. This is a large place. It was a 400 occupancy legal venue. It took us a long time to get the police department and the fire department to understand what we're about, because in LA, if you have a nightclub, it's the fire department that fucks with you.
Oh, right.
And the fire department was directly across the street from us, so we had to really, really step correct.
And it was more about getting people together then, and
right. And the general idea was to build community around the
community
Vortex.
and people. And that's what it's ultimately all about, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the way you can help people, right? You can't help people by just giving them money. You help
Right.
people by creating places and spaces for them to go and get together with other people and
learn to
form
bootstrap
friendships and
themselves.
build,
Yeah. Hmm.
and build something.
Yeah,
Right.
and learn to bootstrap themselves by their own efforts. That's what we were encouraging. But ironically, a lot of young people, like millennial types, they don't really know how to do that kind of stuff. They're more like, in the computers and stuff, and
Right.
to figure out how to lift an amplifier sometimes is too confusing for them. And that's just the sad truth, is that the world has changed, and so there isn't as much of that kind of grassroots activity.
Right, yeah,
But a lot of
yeah.
it happens online, and I'm not a hater. I've always wanted to adapt as the world adapts, and find
Yeah,
that
no, that's what you want to do, right? Yeah.
leaves on your shoes.
No, and that's a great project, because that's, like I said, that's what we all need to do.
Yeah,
We need to get together in groups and hang out, and
Yeah.
and then we can help each other, right? Then you go, oh, John's got an issue. He needs
Yeah.
he needs some help with this, and
Yeah.
same thing like the punk rock thing, right? That guy is going to let us use his amp. Let's bring him on tour
Yeah.
with us, right?
right.
And
that's
and,
what they,
and you don't even know, that may have been a big benefit to him, because he needed to get away and do something with some
Exactly.
people and get out of the headspace he was in, right?
and to their credit, the owners of the Vortex, Cameron and Jeff,
Yeah.
they were kind enough to give me an entire room there where I could build my studio, and I could run shows from out of there too. So I had that place for close to 10 years, and that was the spirit of the place, where they traded me space for me doing their tech, and that was kind of a miracle at the time, because I'd come off of the Satellite Park studio in Malibu, kind of with nothing except all the gear,
Right.
So I had a studio worth of gear but no place to put it, and they set me up over there.
Perfect. So I'd like to end the show, but I also want you to tell us a little bit about the video you made for Hot Rod.
Oh, well,
And then we'll end the show with that video, because
Oh, okay, cool.
it's a great little song there, great
well,
video.
so I started a record company recently called Geza X Records, and I just released Rodney on the Rock Volume 4.
Oh, nice.
Which used to be on Posh Boy Records, Volume 3
Right.
and back, but Posh Boy was kind enough to just hand that over to me. So I made a deal with Rodney Bingenheimer,
Oh,
who is now
perfect.
on Sirius XM,
Yeah, Sirius,
Channel
right.
21. And we put out a 2-record set, which is Rodney on the Rock Volume 4. And it's up on Amazon and Apple Music and all of that, Spotify. But my song Hot Rod, which I did a live version of on YouTube. That's probably what you're going to show.
Right, yeah. Mhm.
I recorded a studio version of that song, and it's on the album Rodney on the Rock Volume 4.
And
So,
you were on a Rodney album as well.
I was on I
Yeah.
was on the Rodney on the Rock Volume 2.
Two,
I think
it was,
Yeah. I can't remember what song it was.
Yeah.
It was probably "We Need More Power."
Yeah, I Need More Power, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Rodney also broke a couple of my bands. He broke Easter, played them quite a bit, and then they'd get into heavy rotation on K-Rock.
Oh, right on.
And then also he played the band Love Dog that I was in.
Oh, right on.
And
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so
Those are
he-
your bands. Cool.
So, yeah, so he was great. Yeah, he was
Oh,
he is one of the best people in the scene that was breaking new bands, right? That didn't have a chance to be recognized because, like you said, the major labels said, no, this is who you're going to put
yeah.
out there, right? And he had his Sunday night show, and then people looked up to what he did, right? This is real new music.
Oh my God,
should
he's been
pay
doing that
attention, right?
for 2 generations. He's an
Yeah.
unbelievable
And he
cat.
still does, right?
He
It's-
still does.
yeah.
He's got the best ear. When he picks music, it's always stuff that I really enjoy. And we talk about music, and I can't believe how much he knows and how many people he knows. Rodney
and
is
he
like,
remembers everybody.
yeah, and he's so humble about
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah, if I run into him at Cantor's, he says, hi, Chad, right?
Right,
You're
right,
like,
yeah, yeah. That's what he's like. He's a wonderful cat. So before we go, I want to give a shout out to my peeps at Airplay Direct. Airplay Direct is a service that allows bands and DJs and music, programmers to connect with one another. They have 12,000 radio stations, and they have 100,000 bands. It's easy and it's free to sign up. And they've done a lot for my label, so I'm really grateful to them.
Awesome.
And I just wanted to give them a big shout out. Airplaydirect.com.
And then how do we find you?
GezaXRecords.com.
Okay, thank you for coming out to see Chad's underground scene with my friend Geza X. This was great.
Thank you.
Great to see you. And
Thanks.
remember, it all starts in the underground. And enjoy the video, Hot Rod.
See you later.
He cruises to the burger stand and hangs out. Shows his car off to the gang and they pout. A little girl comes bouncing up and he shouts, "Hey girlie, what's your name? I got a hot rod. Dee-dee-diddly-dee-dee-diddly. Hot rod. Wahoo. He got a hot rod. Dee-dee-diddly-dee-dee-diddly. Oh, baby. Well, he takes it to the movies and they make out. A kissing and a hugging and there's no doubt. They know what the birds and bees are all about. What's there no doubt about? He got a hot rod. Dee-dee-diddly-dee-dee-diddly. Hot rod. Wahoo. He got a hot rod. Dee-dee-diddly-dee-dee-diddly. Oh, baby. Well, he takes her home to see his mom and daddy. Oh, they say they're gonna talk out on the patio. If mom and dad found out, gosh, they would sure be sore. Mama say, "But Dolly, what are you doing that for?" "Well, gee, Mom, don't you understand? I got a hot rod. Ding-ding-diddly-ding-ding-diddly. Hot rod. Wahoo. He got a hot rod. Ding-ding-diddly-ding-ding-diddly. Oh, baby. Well, they say they're watching TV until late that night. The little girl is horny, but she's dying of fright. "I'm not that kind of girl," she says. "It's impolite." "Oh, what do you mean, baby?" "Dynamite beside my got a hot rod. Ding-ding-diddly-ding-ding-diddly. Hot rod. Wahoo. He got a hot rod. Ding-ding-diddly-ding-ding-diddly. Oh, come on, baby, I won't bite. Well, she giggles and she blushes and takes off her dress. They don't know what to do, so they have to guess. They're clumsy and embarrassed, but they try their best. Oh, what a teenage mess! He had a hot rod. Ding-ding-diddly-ding-ding-diddly. Hot rod. Wahoo. He had a hot rod. Ding-ding-diddly-ding-ding-diddly. Now he thinks he's oversexed. Hot rod. Wahoo. Hot rod. Wahoo. Hot rod. Wahoo. Chance for a good segue. Smoke, teenage, fade out.
Gotta make your own decisions. What you gonna do? Gotta make your own decisions. You gotta see them through. When they talk about it, all the things you've done and said, don't listen to their bullshit. Get it off your head. Said no.
your head up. Don't let them get you down. Do it the way you like it. Don't listen to their sound. You know how you want it. You know they think you're cool. Trying to intimidate. They're a bunch of fools. Said no, no, no. I don't want to be like that. I said no, 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 no. I don't want to be like that. I said no, no, no. I don't want to be like that. I said no, 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 no. I don't want to be like that. We talk about everything